What's up? Welcome back to another live stream right here on Free Will Photos. Today we are talking all about the 2024.1 update for ON1 Photo Raw. Now they've made some new improvements and I just wanted to share my thoughts on them, go over them with you. I know that many creators have been making content, but I just wanted to put my word out there. So like always, if you would like to pick up a copy of ON1 Photo Raw, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the computer and just get started. So let me get my slides moving here. All right. So like I mentioned before, we're doing the Photo Raw 2024.1 update. And here is the very first thing that came out in 2024.1, which is the idea of the color wheels. Now, on the left-hand side, inside of the color balance tool, we have the legacy method. This is what we used to have. Excuse me. This is the method that we used to have prior to the 24.1 update. Now we're getting these color wheels, which are going to be really useful. I'm excited to really kind of dive in, and towards the end of today's stream, I'm going to be editing a photo using these color wheels just to show the possibilities, but there's going to be more content on the channel that, we'll be able to dive into down the line. So here are the next couple things that were updated. The collapsible, or that properties window, right? Added the ability to collapse manually or automatically the property inspector, which is that little window that floats around and everybody, myself included, was a little annoyed with. And they also added the ability to nest this back inside of the right column tool well, or workspace, if you will. And we'll take a look at that. I didn't take any screenshots because I'm going to show that in live action. The next one is going to be very important for those of you who shoot two different camera bodies or two different camera bodies at the same time, or you are working with a second shooter and you need to synchronize your images when you get back into the edit bay. This is going to be one of those tools that allows you to do that a little bit more easy. I'll be honest, I personally don't do this and I don't have the best understanding of how it works. I just understand that you can synchronize your images, so that way, like on a wedding day, if you're taking get ready shots or getting ready shots, and you need to keep up with whatever your second shooter is also photographing, so the photos kind of synchronize throughout the day. You'll have your getting ready shots from your camera and his camera or whatever. They'll be kind of in sequential order when you put all of those photos into a single catalog. I probably did a terrible job at explaining that, but I'll tell you what, I'll go do some research, figure out how to do it, and then make a video about it. That's what I owe you guys. And then the next thing is improve performance when returning to the browse module after editing a photo. And I have seen a little bit of an improvement, but look, I'm not doing any scientific tests. I won't even mention that again. Just know that ON1 is saying that it gets a little bit faster going from the edit window back into the browse window. Okay, so the next one is they added additional user insight if the app crashes due to an outdated video driver. Now, in a minute, we're going to talk about video drivers, but that is a known issue that, there's something you can do, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So let's just keep going. Fix several other bugs. And one of the main things that I noticed, I don't know if it was a bug or if it was just oversight, whatever it may be, but whenever I was using the masking bug in the earlier version of 2024, the overlay would not disappear automatically when I hovered over any of the tools in the right tool well. So I constantly had to jump in and out of the brush tool just so I can see what is happening without the distraction of the overlay on the screen. But they have now fixed that, and I'll showcase that. Then, of course, they added some support for Olympus System TG7. If you use that, then, you're good. They also added some lens profiles here. Canon EF 11 to 24 f4 USM, the Canon RF 15 to 30 millimeter f 4.5 to 6.3, image stabilization STM or IS STM, Fujifilm GF 55 millimeter f 1.7, and then also the Sigma 15 millimeter f 2.8 EXDG fisheye lens. Now, this is that opportunity where if you are on a Windows machine, all right, and maybe if you're using an external GPU on a Mac, but I believe that this issue is really stemmed around those using a Windows machine. If you are needing an NVIDIA driver update, all right, ON1 really does need to work off of the latest drivers because that's what the devs are building their software on and how they're releasing it. So you want to make sure that you have the most updated drivers so you get the same performance. Now, I understand sometimes hardware does limit the ability for you to update your equipment, but hopefully the drivers that you need for this particular update to work well on your machine is not going to overtax your machine. Here's where you can go and get the new driver. What ON1 is witnessing right now is there are a lot of people who are experiencing issues and crashes, I'm assuming through trouble tickets that they're putting in, and they're saying like, hey, ON1 keeps crashing, and they're realizing when they get the log reports that you're not on the latest driver. And I'm assuming that that has resolved a lot of the issues for ON1 crashing on PCs, but you know, just do your due diligence, verify that you can get the updated driver. Now, for your convenience and simplicity, I put the link to the driver website for NVIDIA, for those of you who need it, in the description box of this video. So just check the links down there and you'll see that. So you can go and get your driver and hopefully get ON1 working smoothly for you. But if you do crash and whatever the issue is, just know that ON1 is going to be able to look at that issue because they have that information. So now it is time for us to jump into the demonstration. So bear with me for 1 second here. We'll go like that. And all right. So here we are inside of PhotoRAW 2024. And as you can see, I have the photo that I made with the thumbnail or the thumbnail photo, whatever you want to look at it as. I already did some edits here. So the first thing that we'll talk about is the elephant in the room, which is that not the Brilliance AI. I was looking at Brilliance AI. The elephant in the room is that floating property window. Now, I have personally found, as odd as this is going to sound, I have found that I prefer to leave my property window sitting over here on the left-hand side of my screen. That's because I've been doing it since we released ON1 or since ON1 was released, and I just got used to it sitting there. So now it seems like that's where it belongs in my workflow. I know that it's there now, and yeah. But what you'll notice is it has some different behavior than it used to. And let me just go ahead and reset this to how it used to be. So this is how it used to be. And this is kind of obtrusive or intrusive, and it's very annoying. Like, I can't say it in any other way. It's very annoying. But now, if you come over to Window and you hover over properties, you'll see that there are 3 different options. Now, the show and the hide, that's just a keyboard shortcut to pull up the properties box or to hide the properties box. So you don't have to worry about that so much. But what is important to know are the nest and the auto collapse feature. Now, let me go ahead and show you the nest feature. So if I click nest, you can see that it disappears from the left side of my screen here, which is where I normally keep it. And it is now nested over here in the right column where it once used to be, sort of. Once upon a time, if you used local and you clicked on the mask icon here, it would open up right above or just below the adjustment. All right. You knew which adjustment you were working on or which item you were working on. It was very easy. Now it is separated. So I'll just label this. We'll just call that ADJ1. And then we'll call this one ADJ2. And then I'll minimize these. So you can see I have 3 adjustments here. And if I click on this one, we'll click on ADJ1. The masking layers properties or masking properties, the properties window, if you will, is still, I guess, it's in the same place, right? So it's good that it's in the same place so you can get used to it being up here and it's not in the way. It's helpful for those who are using laptops or smaller screens, whatever it may be. But you still have the same problem of not knowing which thing you're working on, which adjustment you're working on. And I think that that's something that they can improve in a later update with just a little icon that either reads whatever this is or put a little outline across the thumbnail preview of whatever's being adjusted. There's so many ways that I think they could make this better and make it more user-friendly. Now, what I will say is there's also this ability now to auto collapse. So if we come back to properties or window and then properties, we can click on auto collapse. And what that does is it just makes things a little bit more tidy. But if I hover over it, it opens up. And I think that a lot of people are going to enjoy this capability. I personally don't think that it's a great capability in the right column. And that's just because if you want to work on something up here and then you have, let's say I have this adjustment open and then I come to the auto collapse, you see how that's just constantly resizing my window over here? To me, that's distracting. That's just me personally. You let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. But I do believe that that is really, really distracting, and I'm not a fan of that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and show you the way that I use it. But, you know, this is one of the first steps I think ON1 is getting to making it customizable for the user experience. So if you do prefer that, then please let me know in the comment section below. Because, you know, I'm only one of the people that uses this software. There's thousands of people that use this software. And, you know, I'm just giving my opinion on what I think is good, bad, indifferent, whatever. However, for me personally, I like having the properties window over here to the left side of my screen and then having the auto collapse feature turned on. This is far less distracting because I'm okay with this closing down when I move my mouse, and it's actually really responsive. So kudos to ON1 for getting that aspect of this particular feature more snappy and responsive, because if it lagged, then it probably wouldn't be worthwhile using that auto collapse feature. But I really do enjoy using that over here with my properties menu in the float pane, if you will. And if I open up my left bumper or my left pane, you can see now, if I wanted to, I can move this up a little bit higher, and I still have access to all of my presets that were over here that were hidden originally when it was in the non-auto collapse feature. Like right now, I can't see probably 4 or 5 tiles, 6 tiles maybe. I can't see those. I can't interact unless I close this out or I move this off to the side. So I really do appreciate having the auto collapse capability because it does bring back some of the functionality, and I usually leave it just about here. So that way, if I need to move between some tabs. Well, one, I don't think this even bothers the browse, but I do like to see this tab up here, and that's just for reference on my end. Let me know what you think about this particular feature update in the comment section below. Now, that minor adjustment that I talked about earlier is kind of a big deal because this was probably one of the most annoying things. Now, you still have to hit M twice on your keyboard to make the masking bug actually work, or to activate the masking bug. I wish that they would have fixed that, but it is what it is. If you want to get to the masking bug faster, you can click over here. But the keyboard shortcut, you got to hit the letter M twice if you're using the keyboard. So at least on my machine, you let me know if that's a thing on yours. But as you can see, I have a gradient that is really just removing some of this exposure from the right side so we can focus in on the gentleman that I made the portrait of. But what the issue was previously is when I would bring my mouse over to the right, that overlay, or this overlay, would not disappear, and it would just be there, and you would just kind of have to see through the overlay. Now, for some people that may not be distracting. For me, and being used to that going away in previous versions of ON1, having that stay in the current version was just mind-boggling stupid to me. So I had to hit the brush, or hit the letter B twice so I can get to the brush tool, and then I would be able to, kind of look over the overlay. So if I go to the brush, I would do this, I would have my brush, and then I could just move that off to the side or up here, and I can kind of see better what I was doing with that adjustment, because I still have access to modify this adjustment, right? Let's go ahead and reset that to -1. Boom. But that is a huge update. Now, I'm sure there's other bug fixes that are going to be identified as I continue to move through working inside of ON1, but that is the one that I wanted to show. Now, let's talk about the color wheels. We're going to minimize that split tone for a second because I think that there's something to be said about what we can expect in the future, or what we need in the future. Now, I will preface this with saying I don't have any insider information, and I'm just going to make some assessments as well as assumptions on where we can see this tool go to, and what we can see with ON1 later in the future, because I think that this is a telltale sign that ON1 is starting to look at some of their legacy, or their older filters, if you will, and they're revamping them. Once upon a time, we got the update to the curves filter, which is a huge deal. That was a huge deal when it came out, because now we can delete nodes. We got color overlays inside of the grid, stuff like that. But with the color balance, we're getting this updated new tool. Now, unfortunately, you can't resize them, right? And I don't like to start off with negative things, but if I make the panel over here on the right larger, these don't scale with the panel. So they definitely got the release out, but I feel like they meant to make those scalable. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they didn't mean to make them scalable. But the reason why I think they did is because it is extremely hard to kind of navigate this in such a small thing, because the increments here that you have to make, and if you're using a mouse or a Wacom tablet, this is going to be really hard to kind of navigate. Now, I personally would like to see these larger, but I would also like to see the capability that's built into the split tone feature here, where you can click on a box and you get these property menus. It looks a little bit different on Windows, but it's the same concept. Now this, because the wheel is larger, and because you are able to kind of see where that crosshair is aimed, you can navigate a little bit better. But not only that, you have the capability of switching between sliders. So if you want to work in HSB, you can do that to manipulate the color. If you have a hex code, you can come to the RGB sliders and you can put that in there. I've talked about this so many times, and this is the reason why I lean towards the split tone filter, because you just have way more capability. The only thing that you lose in the split tone filter is the idea of adding things to midtones or adding colors to your midtones. But there's ways of getting around that as well, so I don't even worry about it anymore. However, this isn't to say that this update is bad, because what I see ON1 doing is looking at their legacy software or their legacy filters and saying, how can we innovate them? Because once upon a time, I did mention consolidating or getting rid of unused filters. And then it dawned on me, many of these filters are baked in to presets over here. So in order for them to do that, they would have to get new presets. And if you are a legacy user that migrated presets from other versions of ON1, those presets would then be broken. And that would be more devastating than just having an abundance of filters laying around inside of the filter tool or filter pane. Maybe they can organize them differently. So that way, you know, I don't know. I won't get into that. But the thing that excites me about this particular aspect is looking through just the fact that they added some little circles here. Because honestly, I'm not sure if many people are using the color balance tool. But I think that this is their way of saying, look, you can now do a little bit of color grading in your shadows, midtones, and highlights. But I have a whole nother workaround for that. So, and my workaround gives you way more flexibility, and it allows you to do essentially the same thing that you get here, but you have the ability to choose exact colors and be way more precise. And it allows you to reset your tool, if you will. Because right now, if I make this adjustment, and if I double click on midtones, it doesn't do anything. If I click there, that just hides it. If I double click on this slider, it doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't get me back to the middle. So the only way that I can get back to the middle is either hitting this reset button up here, which I don't really want to do, or I have to try and click as close to the center as I possibly can and hope that I land on that little center dial. Now, if I wanted to reset this and I hit this reset button, it's going to reset these two color wheels down here at the bottom as well. And so now I just lost all of my information, like especially if I worked not hard, I won't call it hard, but if I was really like meticulously choosing what color I want in the shadows or in the shadows or the highlights, and then I'm like, you know what, I don't really like that color in the midtones and I just want to go to a neutral gray, so there's nothing there. Well, good luck trying to get this back to a neutral gray where you know for a fact that you're a neutral gray. And that's kind of my conundrum with this, right? So I'll leave it there at that. Now, here's the deal. I did say that we were going to edit an image, and I showed you the split tone. If you haven't caught any of my videos on how I use the split tone to color grade, then just check my creative colors series, as well as I just recently released a video about using the split tone filter as well. This to me is probably one of the best color grading tools in ON1, besides using the photo filter. All right. So using this combined with a photo filter really gives you a lot of creativity. Let me know if you want to see that. I can redo that particular video in the future. So let me know in the comment section if that's something that you want to see. Let's go ahead and jump over to our browse module here. And you can see it's really snappy, jumping back and forth to the browse. So I have no complaints whatsoever. We're going to go ahead and open up this photo right here. And you can see there are a lot of colors. And, I kind of wanted to just use that color grading tool or color balance. I'm calling it a color grading tool just because whenever I see those color wheels, that's what I think of in the video editing space. And so same idea is going to happen here. Now, once it gets done analyzing the image, which it is done, we're going to come over to effects, add filter, and we will add a color balance filter. Now, let me just go ahead and drop some Brilliance AI on this. We'll let that go. And while it does that, I'm gonna get some water. Okay, so, Brilliance AI did a pretty good job here. Again, mileage varies with this, so I'm not gonna harp on that. And this isn't really a video about Brilliance AI. This is about the color balance. So what can we do with color balance? Well, what I like to do is start in my shadows. I don't really mess with the midtones until later on, but I like to start in my shadows. And the very first way is you kind of just guess around here. All right. So let's see, maybe something a little bit more in the pinkish tones. And if I pull this to the left and the right, you can see that it kind of darkens down the image. And I don't have a problem with that in this particular case. And I'll be honest, I like that a little bit. It's subtle, but it definitely starts to move the image in the direction that I would like to see it go. Now, I'll just call this shadow. The problem with ON1 and really any software like it is sometimes you can get excited and you can start working with highlights in other, the problem is doing too much in one filter. That's what I want to say. Doing too much in one filter. All right. My recommendation is you do 3 instances of the color balance tool. So instead of working with all 3 on one, this one will be my highlights filter. So I'll just call this HLs like so. So now I know that I'm working with just the highlights here, and I can move this maybe something complementary to what I selected earlier. And I can pull up on my highlights or pull down, maybe pull up. I think that that'll be cool. So now what I can do is I can take this particular edit, if you will, click on the mask icon. So I go to my properties. And now that I'm in the properties, I can come over to my blending and change the blend mode for just my highlight adjustment over to color. This way, it's not actually increasing the bright areas. It's just adding color into my highlights. And I have the ability to select the range of what I consider to be a highlight, not making a huge difference on this particular image by doing that. But look, now I can just hover away from my properties pane and it all works out fairly smooth. So if I turn this off and on, you can see what it's doing to the overall image. It's just adding in a little bit of those colors to just the highlight section of my image. And it's starting to balance out the entire photo. So if I turn off the shadows, you can see that magenta tint kind of goes off and on. And if the shadow is off, then I just have like this pure green tint. And if the shadows are on, then it starts to get a little bit more balanced. Then of course, if you want it to work with your midtones, then you can come over and add a third color balance and then just call this mids. And now I can work with my midtones however I want to, and really kind of drive in whatever it is that I need to for this image. So maybe somewhere around here could work. And then if I pull this down, and then again, since I don't want it to actually impact my overall lighting, I'll come to blend and select color. So that way it's not impacting my lighting. And you're really starting to separate your edit. Then of course I can come into develop tone and color. And if I'm like, you know what, the photo's still a little too bright, maybe pull down on the midtones, maybe contrast this just a little bit more, add in some structure, and maybe even vibrance this a little bit. Pull down on the saturation so that way it's a little bit more faded. And in a very short period of time, I got a pretty decent looking color edit. If I show you what I came into the edit module with, and then this is what we're leaving the edit module with. So my recommendation for using the color balance tool is to use 3 different instances of them. And if you find like, hey, you know what, I don't want this mid-tone adjustment over the middle section here, well, I can just take my brush tool with erase. Let me put my opacity all the way up to 100%. And I could just erase this from this section of the photo. Now it's extremely subtle, but just know that it does actually work. If I hit the letter O, you can see where I painted that away from, and you could just get way more creative, but you're only adjusting the midtones at that point. Now, of course, if you don't want any color grading in this entire area, then you would have to copy this particular mask, come over to these other masks and paste the mask onto all of these other ones. And now I don't have anything adjusting in this area on any of my masks. So highlights, shadows, and mids, this is purely what comes out of camera. So if you want to do something that gets a little bit more edgy, if you will, we can come into tone and color, maybe push down on the blacks. And you know what? This is ON1. We have the bleach bypass filter. And, when you talk about doing things that are edgy, I think bleach bypass all the time because I think it is a very edgy filter. A little too strong for this particular image, or at least the look that I want to go for. And I'll push up on the contrast and maybe even some of the detail, but pull down on the amount. I think that this could be a good balance of just making that photo a little bit more contrasty, but again, playing around with it. Again, this is what we came in to the editing bay with, a little washed out. It is a raw image, added in some contrast and some color grading, and made this photo a little bit different, hopefully more unique than what we came in with. So there you have it, the ON1 Photo Raw 2024.1 update. I went through a lot of the features fairly quickly, shared my thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours because I know that I'm not the only person using this software, and everyone has ideas and things that they want to contribute to what they think about the update. I do believe that it is a good update, and I love using ON1, so I'm excited to continue editing photos with it and making my modifications, obviously working around some of the challenges that are presented to us with the current limitations of the color wheels. But I'm excited for the future because that means that they're likely going to start looking at other filters that are inside of ON1 and revamping those. And, that is something I look forward to. Excited that we don't have to worry about the properties window anymore being a floating window. If you want that to be in your actual docked column, then you can do that. But for me, I like it over on the left side and making it collapse. So love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Again, if you want to pick up On1 Photo Raw 2024 or just anything over at the On1 website, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It'll save you some money when you check out. You can find that in the description box below. Until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.